Hello everybody, welcome to Master the Ladder. We are learning Ashlag Kabbalah, and Ashlag Kabbalah is the explanation of the great Kabbalist, modern Kabbalist, lived 75 years ago. His name was Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag, and he's known as the Master of the Ladder for his de-encrypting of the Zohar and the works of the Ariha Kodesh, and so he decoded the secret language that's in the Zohar and gave the modern Kabbalist, the modern practitioner, the ability to understand in a way that was completely impossible for the average person years ago. Okay, so let's start with the obvious. Okay, so the world is in crisis. We are here in Israel. We are in the middle of a war. We've had hundreds of soldiers, men and women, die in battle, and there are issues across the globe. Many of the Western countries seem to be on the verge of civil war, certainly civil unrest, and social collapse. And we have AI on the horizon, and all these other technologies and social media, and people were all types of problems that were unknown to humanity just a few years ago, and so it's an understatement to say that the world is in crisis. What is also obvious is that there is an explosion of anti-Semitism, and so this is something that's seems strange, but something that the Jewish people have seen before, which is that in times of crisis, people seem to focus on the Jewish people, something that is very familiar to Jewish people. I myself grew up in the United States during a wonderful time, and I remember my grandparents. My grandfather was 2 children out of 13 who actually survived the Holocaust. Everybody else, all his brothers and sisters, except for one sister, were actually killed in Europe during the Holocaust. And so this is something that is very disconcerting. I never thought that I would see this in my lifetime, and here we are. And so we're now dealing with an explosion of anti-Semitism. And so if you go online, you see any number of philosophers and historians and thinkers of all kinds telling you what is the root cause of anti-Semitism. And so we don't have to look that far. We can look straight at the Bible, and it says in no uncertain terms in the Bible that in the Torah, the Jews have been tasked with being a light unto the nations, and when they fall short of their mission, there will be certain groups of people throughout history who will rise up and attack the Jewish people and remind them that they have an obligation, a contract with God to be a light unto the nations. Okay, so that's very interesting, but we need to gain some clarity on what exactly it means to be a light unto the nations. Okay, so if you ask the average person, man on the street, if you ask them what it means to be a light unto the nations, they'll probably tell you it means to be kind, it means to be a good person, it means to be a moral person, a righteous person, right? These are the things, and that's certainly true. And if you would ask somebody who's an observant Jew, they would probably be more precise, and they would start telling you that the obligation of the Jews of being a light unto the nation is that they keep the commandments, and that there's seemingly endless commandments of things that you're allowed to do and things that you're not supposed to do. We have to keep Shabbat, and we have to keep kosher, and there's all the holidays, right? And there's endless rules in the Torah, and that is what, if you ask a religious person, that's likely what they would tell you is what it means for the Jewish people to be a light unto the nations. But we have to dig deeper, because now we are in unprecedented times. The rabbis are telling us, it's very commonplace now, especially in Israel, that people say that we are in the very beginnings of the redemption, that we are leaving the spiritual exile of 2,000 years. That's for the Jewish people specifically, but for the whole world, that we've been in a spiritual exile, and we are entering into a time of higher consciousness, God consciousness, where we will have revelation of godliness, and this everybody will come together in peace and love, right? So this is what we're hearing, and that this time could be very, very disorienting and very confusing, and there could be a lot of suffering during this time period. There's a lot of prophecies about this, right? And so, because we are entering into this time, and we see that even if you're a secular person, that you see that the times are very unusual, and there was even secular people talking about some kind of cosmic shift to the way that the world is, right? Talk about AI and all these things that are going to change things on a fundamental level, right? And so, because of that, the Kabbalists tell us that we have to start to learn the Torah on the interior level, that there's an exterior of the Torah, which deals with the material plane of existence, and then there's the internal aspect of Torah, okay? So, we still have to understand what that means, because even though people are saying that we have to learn the interior of the Torah, it's very commonplace to hear that now, and the interior of the Torah is called Kabbalah or Hasidut, two versions of the same thing, the interior aspect of Torah, and we have to study that. And so even without people hearing that over and over again and discussing it, it's very hard for many of us, for all of us, to understand what exactly is this method of Torah study, the interior of the Torah, which is called Kabbalah. What exactly is it? You know, people think, if you speak to people, I live here in Sfat, and I speak to people on Shabbat, and people think it's Kabbalah is magic, or it's some kind of names of God that you must repeat and meditate on, and that somehow does something very, very cryptic and brings some kind of drawing down energies, and there's some truth to that, but it's still a very confusing way of speaking about it. And so the Bala Sulam, who speaks in very clear language, he explains that the exterior of the Torah has to do with actions. We know, right, what to do and what not to do, and how to speak, and even how to think. But the interior of the Torah, the Kabbalistic level, the spiritual level, is talking about and evaluating and working with our desires and our intentions. Okay? So, that is the introduction. Let's see if we can read a little bit and see if we can start to put ourselves in the framework of understanding what it means to start to be aware of your desires and your intentions, and how to begin to work with that. Okay, so let's read. We're reading from this book. It's called Spiritual Principles, and it's basically a compilation of the of excerpts from the writings of the Baal Sulam. The Baal Sulam wrote many, many articles explaining to a student what the practice of Kabbalah is, what the study is, and how to achieve the goals of creation. Okay, so here we go. Let's read. Awareness. When we want to connect to God and begin to work on ourselves spiritually in a real way, we begin to see how far we are from having faith and from the state of truly giving. We become aware of our lack of belief in God and realize that we are not living with awareness that we are in the presence of God. We see that our ego completely refuses to humble itself to the reality of God. We also begin to see how far we are from truly loving others and becoming aware of how self-centered we actually are. The more we work to overcome our self-centeredness, the more we become aware of our desire to receive. We come to realize the extent to which we are concerned only for ourselves. This awareness, although very painful, is extremely important. Awareness of our selfishness and the suffering that our selfishness brings will allow us to connect to the inner work of transformation. Feeling our enslavement enables us to be redeemed. Okay. So, I don't think I want to discuss that. I think that the reading is it's self-explanatory. But what I would like to try to do is try to talk about what this could possibly have to do with anti-Semitism and with the crises in the world. It sounds it sounds like a disconnect. I mean, we have all this craziness in the world, and we have Now we're talking about a Jewish spiritual system of becoming a better person, right? So the Kabbalists explain that these things are in fact directly connected, and that the method of Kabbalah is literally the method for bringing peace and balance and unity to the world. And the reason for this is very mysterious, but the more we study and the more we learn, the more we'll understand that everything we're seeing in this world on the material plane of existence is a manifestation of our collective desires and intentions. Let me say that again. Everything that we see in this degree of consciousness on the material plane of existence is a manifestation of all of our desires and all of our intentions. That is what the world is, the Kabbalists tell us. As a person elevates and achieves higher states of consciousness, this, what is being said here, will become self-evident, stage by stage. A person will start to feel and realize and understand that the problems in the world are a outgrowth of what we feel and what we desire. And as we raise our consciousness and start to desire unity and love and balance and positive connection, something very mysterious happens. And what happens is that we start to see that everything is really a conversation. All of reality is a conversation between us and the creator. The programmer of everything that we're seeing is actually speaking to us through this manifest reality. And as we seek to unify and to rise above our selfish, egoistic natures, our consciousness, our awareness, and we start to see and feel and understand how everything in creation is connected, and how our intentions and how what we want out of life and what we desire is directly creating what we're seeing before our eyes. And so what the Kabbalists are very clear about is that everything that we do on the material plane, if somebody's bothering me, or I don't like something, or I want something in life, and I go out and I work on the physical plane of existence, certainly we have to live that way, because we live in a physical world, and we have to do all those things. But we have to bring an intention with whatever we're doing, because if we're just trying to get things on the physical plane without working with our intentions and our emotions and our desires, at best we're putting a band-aid on the problems. And at worst, we're actually part of the problem. If anybody out there wants to learn more in a more regular and more advanced group, you can certainly contact me on YouTube, and I can give you information about great master Kabbalists who are teaching, and groups that are studying together. And let's all look and expect good things for everybody in the world. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.